Hello and welcome to the New Ashla podcast. If you've ever felt like the weight of the world was too heavy to carry, you're not alone. Today, we're diving into a sensitive topic. So, for those of you listening, if this might be triggering or something that hits a little too close to home for now, please use your discretion while diving into this episode. I'd also like to bring up that we are not therapists, we are not professionals. So if you or anyone you know is going through this might give you resources and tools to help navigate this, but please seek professional help. Today we are diving into suicide awareness. I think this is something that touches more people than a lot of us realize. It's one of those silent scars that we can carry around or that we see others with, and I think it's imperative that we have more discussions around this. Suicide, more than 720,000 people take their lives every year, and 80% of the suicides that happen are from men. These are really detrimental statistics. It's heavy, it's impactful. It shouldn't be like this, but this is the world we live in. So, I know for me, once in my life I went through my own struggles where I got close to that point. And if it wasn't for having so many people in my life I cared about, I know I might have crossed that threshold, but I was thankful that that hope kept me going. And sometimes when we're in the thick of it, it's hard not to see the light that is there because there is always light. Wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
yeah. This conversation matters because how many people it kills and how many lives are lost. And for us, we're guys, right? This really hits home for us. At 80% of 720,000, there's a good chance that all of us at least know a guy that knows a guy. That's how close it gets to us, right?
Yeah, it's so true.
I myself have come close too, many moons ago, over my first wife, and I hope you're not watching this stuff because I don't want you to get something out of it. But I was in the Army. I was stationed here at Fort Carson for most of my time in the Army. She did some bad stuff to me, Jody came knocking, if you know what I mean. For those who know, they know. And I know both of you guys are in the military, so you know who Jody is, that little
Yeah, I've got
bastard.
an ex-wife for a reason.
But yeah, he came knocking and knocked her up, and she put me into a real bad spot when I was away for a long time. So yeah, and I know guys that have gone through it. So it's crazy how close. This is the thing about this. It's crazy how close it gets to you. It always sounds like something far away. But it's really close, much closer than you think, because chances are, yeah, 80% of this are men and 720, would you say 720,000 a
Yeah.
year, roughly? How many people are thinking about it? How many people are close? How many people have maybe even planned it out? I think this is a lot closer to us than we like. And it's this episode is not about our platitudes and our little talking about like the stuff we talk about, Michael. Where we kind of build a place for people to hang out and kind of talk through this stuff. No platitudes today. This is very serious. So I'm glad we're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
I'm very glad to be a part of it. So I did 22 and a half years active duty, United States Air Force. I was military police, combat tours, Iraq, Afghanistan. I've been there, done it, seen it. Just retired last September, so I got to tear up my proverbial blank check that I gave to Uncle Sam over 22 years ago. I have responded to, I can't even count anymore how many
Mhm.
attempted suicides, completed suicides. I wear my Till Valhalla 22 a day. I have unfortunately had to hear bagpipes and everything for about, in fact, I just lost another one, airman, young kid, about 25 years old with two kids. That was a little over a month ago, puts it about 17 or 18 now. So mental health is real. It's not just for men, it's for women, it's for everybody. And I mean, I'm sure I'll share it a little bit later on in this, but you have to pick and make a choice every day to either feed the good wolf or the bad wolf. And we can get more into this and I can explain that analogy a little bit later, but I'm glad to be here. This is something I'm a massive advocate about. Words are hard. I have attended mental health first aid. I still hold a certification in that. I've went even as so far as when I was active duty telling the first sergeant I've had kids come and stay at my house and I put them on suicide watch at my own home. I'll cry with you, I'll scream with you, I'll let you punch me. I don't care. Whatever it takes for you to get it out and talk about it, and then we can get you on a path to attempting to heal. And that's a very big key word, is making an attempt. Choosing to care about somebody is an intrinsic choice. You have to really want that, because you have to really, you know, we love ourselves to a certain point, and loving ourselves is almost harder than loving somebody else. Because we always, if you're a doer and you really care about other people, you're always doing for other people. Always, 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 always. But are you checking yourself? Are you looking in the mirror at the end of the day and saying, you're enough, I'm enough, I matter? And that's kind of, hinting towards that analogy of feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf.
Man, that's so beautifully said. Now, I'm sorry, I don't think I covered this in the intro. It was so heavy, but this is Gabe. He is someone I've worked with for a while now, and he is one of the coolest, most down-to-earth people I've ever met. And he sent out an email to a bunch of us and was just bringing this to the surface. And I'm like, we need to talk about this. We need more discussion. So thank you so much, Gabe, for coming on and being a part of this conversation. And man, I knew you had insights, but I didn't realize just how deep those insights went. Now, you were talking about the good wolf and the bad wolf. I would go ahead, enlighten people to what this is. I love this analogy.
Yeah, so feeding the good wolf and bad wolf, it goes to a very old Cherokee Indian saying or conversation. And kind of how it goes generically is, and you can look this up on Google, that you can research the story a little bit further, but a chief inside of one of the tribes, his grandson came up to him and was having a conversation about, I'm upset today, or, something to the effect. And the grandfather told him, well, we all make a choice every day to feed the good wolf and the bad wolf. So if you think about it from a mental health perspective, the good wolf can be positivity, love, happiness, a smile, laughter, a hug, just something as simple as, going to somebody you may not even know and just walking up and being like, how are you? Are you really okay? It's those positive vibes. And then when we talk about the counter to that, feeding the bad wolf, anxiety, depression, anger, hatred, not loving yourself, not being able to find love in your life. So that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier about, talking about feeding the good wolf and the bad wolf. You have to make a conscious choice throughout the day. It's not even that you just wake up and you look at the mirror and get ready for work and say, I'm going to have a good day. Because the bad wolf comes at us all day. It just chips at us and chips at us and just takes those small bites. And then, as a father, active duty military member, as to what's on this panel right now, you go to work, you deal with whatever you deal with, you bottle that, and then you bring it home. It takes a very conscious choice to check the uniform at the door and just leave it at work. That's hard. That is hard for all of us. You could be a blue collar worker, you could be a major executive for a Fortune 500 company, or you could wear the nation's uniform. It doesn't matter. Those, depression is one of the biggest, things that runs rampant across the entire nation and across the entire world. I don't care what demographic you're from. I don't care what language you speak. Depression is a big thing. Anxiety is a big thing. And unfortunately, the medical field just wants to throw medication and medication and medication and medication and medication. And, hey, we're going to dedicate a month to mental health awareness and we care about you. It's so great. And bullshit. And that's why I put in that email, Mike, when I sent it out to the entire company, mental health awareness is not a month. It's not like, Santa Claus Day or whatever else. Mental health has to be something that you care about every single day. Because if you're dealing with it yourself, then you're living it. And then if you have friends that are going through it, you're just trying to be there. When internally you're so jacked up yourself, you're like, what do I do? But, how do I help my friends at the same time? So what do we all do? We put on a mask. And we walk around with a mask constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're just trying to go through the mundane, things of just going through life and going through life and going through life. But we never truly focus on getting ourselves healed. So,
We
me,
talk
no, please.
we talk a lot about mental health on here, and I mean, a lot of these things you are saying are things we like to bring up almost in every episode, from the mass to mental health. I mean, the reason I'm so passionate about mental health is I remember 3 years ago, I thought I crapped gold. I thought I was perfect as far as my mental health went. I thought I was right as rain, and it took life humbling me to really realize that I had faulty programming. You know, I'm going to school right now for psychology. I am very passionate about it because our minds are like computers. And if we don't run that antivirus every now and then, it slowly interacts with the programs. We start having programs misfire. We start having information leak. And next thing we know, our computer's corrupted. And we won't even notice it because it's such a slow decline. And I love the wolf analogy because it's exactly this. We as humans have survival instincts, and our survival instincts gear us to every, I think it's like 9 positive things we see. If we see one negative thing, we will focus on that negative thing. So if we are not consciously feeding that good wolf, if we are not consciously being mindful, present, practicing gratitude. I mean, and these are things we don't normally think about. You know, we find the good in the moment, but if we're not conscious about this, that bad wolf is going to start getting bigger and bigger, and it'll swallow that good wolf real easy if you're not careful. Life can be a dark place if you let it take you there.
Because we're not taught very well.
No.
No.
You know, Gabe was talking to something about earlier. You know, they do a good job of teaching us how to construct weapons of destruction and use them with razor sharp efficiency. When we get out, they don't do a good job of that. They just say, they pat us on the bottom and say, "See you, pal." And, you know, the thing
Here's some
about
medication.
mental illness, here's some medication, or good luck, right? They just say good luck because there's always this huge stigma. I think Gabe's probably closer to my age than yours, Michael. And when we were kids, if people thought you were crazy, they would send a van and pick your behind up, man. So there's this huge stigma around it, and especially for veterans, first responders, all these, you know, this classification of people, we don't talk about it because we're scared they're going to mess with us. Slowly but surely, we're starting to break that stigma, and that's why on this show we talk a lot about it, because, you know, if we're looking at life from a holistic standpoint, we have to remember that the mind is the swivel that keeps everything else in check, and we got to be open and honest with people. So, you know, that's why this topic is so perfect, and I think Gabe is the perfect guest for us today on this, because we have to, this has to be raw, it has to be true, and it has to be just like, look, no judgment to anyone. We've all had these thoughts or thoughts adjacent. If someone tells you they haven't ever thought about something close to this or this, they're probably wearing a mask, or they're probably trying to keep you out of the loop because they're scared that you're going to judge them or something. So, you know, no judgment here at all. We're just trying to create a space today where we can talk openly about these dark themes. Despair, isolation, hell, you know?
Hopelessness.
Because hell isn't fire and brimstone, hell is disconnection. And that's where people get into the weeds, really, when we start thinking that there's no one else for us. We are the only ones left. And when we did the show on the codes with Allie, what was the thing that stood out about the Soldier's Creed to you?
It was about how you always go back for the fallen soldier.
We never leave a man behind, ever. Doesn't matter in what part of life, doesn't matter. It's not just for the battlefield. This is for everywhere. We never leave a man behind, ever.
Well, and something else too that's really, really, really at a prime of affecting mental health nowadays is society.
Mm-hmm.
It's how kids are being raised. It's cyberbullying. It's bullying in schools. It's these kids having social media is a killer. It is a systemic killer because it is giving these young kids an avenue to think that they're projecting something out into the world. They're getting taken advantage of, human trafficking, and slavery of kids, sex trafficking, all of it. It's all prominently happening, and social media is right at the heart of it. I say this as a very funny cliche, statement, but the invention of the internet was the best invention for society. Point
I
blank.
agree with that 100%.
Point
100%.
what we're seeing now, and like I said, I came in after 9/11. Believe it or not, pre 9/11, you couldn't have paid me to go in the military. I wanted nothing to do with it. And
Hmm.
it wasn't about going to war or being scared or anything else like that. It just didn't appeal to me.
Maybe I'm a little older than you now that you say that.
And then my stepbrother was a Marine for 17 years. My little brother went into the Army. He got hurt in AIT, so he spent his whole 4 years at Walter Reed as a medical holdover.
Mm.
So, and my brother was Final Fantasy, sitting on the gaming systems all afternoon while I'm out working two jobs, mowing lawns, doing whatever, just, picking up work. So, me joining the military was, I've already got this structure. Now, what can I do with it? How can I
Right.
excel my structure? And that's what I did. I joined the Air Force April of 2003, and it was a different time. It was
Hmm.
very, very, very much a different time. And I know you can definitely attest to this. Is it's, the military back then versus the military now, it's night and
Hmm.
day. I mean, absolutely
Right.
100% night and day. When I was in basic training, I had a 6'4" TI, and I'm 6'6". I'm 6'6", 260 pounds. So I mean, I was a big dude in my own right, back in that day. But having that Smokey the Bear hat just tap me in the forehead,
Hmm.
all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and they weren't scared to toss your locker or toss your bed or get up in your face and using that physical intimidation and stuff like that. Nowadays they got their cell phones in basic training.
That's
They
crazy.
have
What?
calming corners. They have stress cards
Hold
where they
up.
can pull themselves out.
What is a calming corner? That sounds
Well,
that sounds nice.
calming corners, stress cards, whatever you want to call it, but it
Right,
is
right.
definitely the kinder, gentler military.
Uh,
Well, last time I checked, folks, our adversaries are not the kinder, gentler adversary. They're not going to, you're not
Give
going
you
to
a
go up with
stress
your,
card war.
yeah, hold on a second. I didn't receive that much training on this. Can you not shoot me? It doesn't work like that in battle. It just does not work like that. So I say all that to say this, that mental health is even getting worse because parents are not as involved with their kids because they're so stressed out with work because the inflation of what it cost you for a dozen of eggs, 5 years ago is not the same now. So there's no middle class anymore. You're either rich or you're poor. It just is what it is.
hmm.
If you can find a way in your life to live comfortably, you're doing pretty good. But, parents are so stressed out working two, three jobs, if both parents are even still in the household, just to make ends meet,
Right.
that they don't have the time to be that caring, loving parent to really be involved in their kids' lives as much as what they should to make sure that they're not being bullied. See what they're, posting on social media. Come hell or high water, my kid's not getting a damn cell phone till he's, 18.
Yep.
It just it brings too much bad. It can bring a
Hmm.
lot of good because if you got something going on inside the school, you can call 911. I get that and I understand that. But society is a definite major proprietor to mental health nowadays.
I
Well, and
highly
you talked
recommend
about
anyone interested in this to read the book The Anxiety Generation, and it is all about the mental health repercussions on children and smartphones and technology in general. Just because it ends up becoming that safe, hey, this will babysit my kids for free, and next thing you know, and I get it, life gets busy, life gets chaotic, and when kids don't have that type of attention, when they're not getting that one on one, there's so much that can go wrong when they're on the internet and they're self-soothing their nervous systems. They no longer know how to regulate themselves or handle difficult moments because they're used to escapism, which isn't their fault. And it's not the parents' fault either. It's just where society's at, and we're now just learning the detriments of this. So there's no finger pointing or being like you're a bad parent, but it is worth being aware.
well, and you bring up Gabe brought up a perfect point, and I can illustrate this through generational understandings. Gen Xers were the latchkey kids. We were feral. We had no supervision, usually ever. Can you imagine if the Gen Xers had the internet back then? I mean, so it would have been maybe we'd be doing this back then, but it's crazy because you talk about social media, and yeah, it's good to have a phone to stay connected to parents and whoever. in emergency services, but most of them don't even use it for that anymore. They just pull it out to start recording. They're just going to start doing this, and they don't even think about, oh shit, I should call somebody.
Right.
And everybody on scene thinks the other person called. So then this thing is just escalating and escalating and escalating, and the cops are none the wiser. So we've talked about social media before, and it is, God, it's crazy, and it sucks because we ran through it so fast before realizing what it does to us. And even us old dogs, man.
AI.
Even the old dogs, sometimes, if I'm in kind of a crappy mood, and I pick up my phone and I look at one reel, I've gone through 2.5 hours of reels, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I want to throw my phone, as far away as I can, but I'm still paying on the damn thing, so I don't want to throw it too far.
Well, I mean, what's sad too is like when we were all kids, get your ass outside. I don't want you back inside this house until the lights come on outside.
Right.
You can't do that nowadays, though.
No.
That is what is so sad about our society, is because the bad people out doing bad shit back in the days of us, being kids, you just didn't hear about it. You didn't read about it because there wasn't social media catching every, sex offender within 5 miles doing, whatever that they're doing. Parents just cannot trust the fact that their kids can be out by themselves being a kid. Like kids right now in society are being robbed of their childhood because the schools are cramming so much homework down their throat. I mean, my child alone, he is very high functioning, autistic. He deals with his challenges too. You wouldn't know it even if you really talked to him. But when the hell did 5 + 5 stop equaling 10? All of us, we grew up perfectly fine. We've all held successful careers. We are, still holding successful careers. And 5 + 5 at the end of the day is still 10. I got 2 hands. I can do it right now. But society.
That's because you weren't in EOD. You were in military police.
Yeah. Well, they call us security forces, but we're kind of special ed forces is basically kind of we're the Paul Blart of the Air Force. It's all good though. So.
It's funny you say that because in my years of law enforcement after the Army, most of the people I worked with were Air Force police. Not a whole lot of Army, not a whole lot of Navy. I don't know why that is. Maybe they just train you guys better. I don't know. I
can actually personally attest to the fact I think it really is in the training.
Yeah.
The times that I was in Iraq, the time I was there in 05 to 06, there were 2 brigades that got kicked out of the South and got sent up to us for excessive force and, all this other stuff. We had a 2-star Army general that was in charge of the entire camp, and that's, Italians, United States Air Force active duty, Army active duty, blah, 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 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He loved his Air Force cops. Absolutely, hands down. He was like, you guys got my perimeter, you got the patrols outside the wire, you got this, you got that, because they could not count on the Army to do it correctly. And that's not all of them. There are some very gung-ho, squared away, soldiers. There's squared away Marines. There's squared away seamen. There's squared away airmen. But it's the bad actors in there that kind of spoil it for the whole group.
Yeah.
But no, he absolutely loved his Air Force cops. Me, you couldn't have paid me to be law enforcement on the outside. Nope.
Especially nowadays, especially in our state of Colorado. It's getting really weird, But we have, Allie, if you're listening to this, do not just ignore what we said about Army cops, okay? Please.
Trust me, I have worked with a great bunch of people that I still talk to today that were Army MPs and, Marines and Navy. So at the end of the day, we all bleed red, and it's one team, one fight. That was the motto I always lived by. People called me the chair force and this and that. I'm like, yeah, but when you guys need an airlift out, who y'all calling?
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
When you don't want to walk anymore, give me a call.
Or when you want 2 proteins when you go to the chow hall, you come to
Oh man, I mean, we're getting way off the reservation here, but I will tell you that being stationed at Fort Carson and having Peterson so close, where we ate chow every day.
Absolutely.
That's where we would, and you had waiters and stuff. It was crazy. If you didn't eat fast enough in the Army chow hall, they might snag you up to wash dishes, and you just eat real quick and go. So,
All right, Mike, before we lose the reins,
Michael, I want to ask you this.
circle us back.
All right.
Michael, so I'm going to make a statement, and you guys tell me if it's true, and you can elaborate. But one of the biggest dangers of suicide is silence, right?
Yes and no.
What?
I will say yes and no.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So, yes, suffering in silence, yes, right? Because if you're not saying anything, one of the biggest things I always did when I came in for shift, and that was whether I was working day shift, swing shift, mid shift, it didn't matter. I would just look, look at everybody's face, kind of seeing how everybody's mannerisms are, if everyone's shooting the bullshit before or shift, so forth and so on. I could tell. I could tell by just the look on your face if it was going to be a good start of a shift for you or if we were going to have a talk after guard mount. And you are absolutely correct. Suffering in silence is one of the worst. But there is also suffering and screaming out so loud, and you feel like no one's there to actually hear you. And that's, I've seen that a lot too. I've seen people that almost classified as those problem children because they're complaining all the time and no one's really taking them seriously because they've cried wolf so many times that no one wants to actually listen to what is going on. And then they actually have a real hard break in life and everyone just thinks they're blowing smoke again. So they don't want to listen to what they have to say. So I say, anytime someone is crying or has an outreach, listen. It ain't going to take you but 5 minutes, but just sit and listen to what they have to say. Maybe they're just one of those high-strung type of people that everything is a hard break and you just have to kind of get them through it. That's anxiety. If you can kind of break that wall and get the open lines of communication, nothing deep, but just, hey, tell me about your day. Tell me about what's going on. And you start getting that open dialogue going and going and going and going and going. And maybe 45 minutes to an hour into your conversation, well, hey, how about I take you to the chaplain myself and explain the religious side of of the military. And I can really kind of base everything off of the military because I'm so fresh coming out. But, this is just the basics in general society. Take them to the nearest religious, that they're affiliated with. Or if they're not, go find a hospital, walk them inpatient. I've had to do that with people myself. So, yes, suffering in silence, most definitely, but there is like suffering screaming at the top of your lungs too. It just may not be actual, but you just got to know your audience.
And
I'm so glad I let you go first.
That's a perfect
because you're right
point.
on the money.
Yeah. I just want to point out that and I guess I should have clarified this, but we do have the element of silence, but we also have people that are deaf to other people and what they're going through. Being a cop, you understand this because every time you do a traffic stop, you have to really, really, really be careful because we don't know what just happened to this person. It could be the worst day of their life, and this ticket might be the thing that just flips them, right? So, you build this very elaborate toolbox of how to see and how to, besides the other training that you had, you have to learn to speak to people without speaking. You got to know everything about them in 25 seconds, as you're looking at them in the mirror, as you're trying to see how fidgety they are. And it may not have anything to do with them being a bad guy. They might have just lost their mother. They might have just lost their dog.
That takes knowing yourself and going through it yourself.
Absolutely.
That helps you be, like, I've worked with high-strung cops that just think their shit doesn't stink, and they get out there and they're just raw, like in your face, how to deal with their traffic stops. And then I do it, and I get a completely different outcome out of the
every single time. Man.
And after you're, driving back to the station, they're like, how'd you do that? I said, dude, put yourself in their shoes. You don't know what kind of day that they've had. An analogy I will use is handcuffing. Most people, they'll go in, put your hands behind your back, do this, do that, do that. I will walk you through every single step of why I am doing what I'm doing. And I will be very calm and very collected about it. And I will always reassure that this is for your safety. This is for your safety and for my safety. At this time, I'm going to put this handcuff on your wrist. Please tell me if it's too tight. I don't go anything aggressive because what energy you put in, you're going to get back. And it may not be getting back what you really want, but you put it in, so you got to deal with it, coming back at you. So
yeah, and uh, just a quick search in YouTube, you'll see the difference. It's night and day, night and day. Michael, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you a minute ago.
No, you're good. No, I was just saying I'm glad he went first on that question because
Yeah,
that was a great point right there. I do think many of us do struggle in silence. I mean, one thing that is it's starting to phase out, but men are taught that our families or loved ones would rather see us die on that white horse than fall off of it. And this mentality of vulnerability being shameful or being wrong and trying to just repress it. I see it so much with so many people I care about where they don't know how to talk, don't even know how to talk about their problems, about their issues or their struggles. And it's like they want to carry that stoic air of, I can take care of anything and I'm here for you. And it's like you were saying, Gabe, that people want to help everyone around them, but they forget to look in the mirror and say, hey, what do you need? You are enough. You don't need to save everyone to earn your value. It's one of the biggest lessons I learned when I started this healing journey was all my relationships was me trying to be a superhero and trying to find people to save. And it's because I didn't want to save myself. It's because the only way I knew how to get love and validation was from sacrificing myself for everyone else when I finally realized that's what I need to give myself. I can't live a fulfilling life if I do not love and value myself. And having that shift took a lot of work, a lot of patience, but it led to some of the most profound changes. And now it's beautiful. I mean, this podcast, I can be open and vulnerable because I know it's my truth. But I think that's something that needs to be taught more in society.
I want to throw some myth and facts out there so we can get people to feel comfortable about breaking the silence, right? So I'm gonna throw some myths at you guys, and you tell me what you think. So the first myth is talking about suicide makes it more likely someone will attempt it. Is that a myth or a fact? What do you think?
I mean, there's suicidal ideation, which is really predominant nowadays, but
I think if you send the right message when you're talking about suicide, then it doesn't become where someone starts to adopt that mindset of like starting to link their problems into, well, hey, this might be an avenue. This might be able to help me escape all of my problems. But you are correct. It is a myth. Traditionally, it is a myth. I think it depends on the delivery of that conversation and how that conversation is really being.
Well, it reminds me of how many people out there these days have CPR certifications, right? They have CPR certifications, they have AED certifications, every walk of life, every business, every workplace, they're half the workforce in some places. And they're not even first responders, they're just regular dudes and chicks doing some job. But we don't have a lot of people with good emotional first aid, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Well said.
and if you work in these really high, police departments and stuff are starting to adopt it. I'll give you an example. Fire departments too, but I'll give you an example. Up there in Monument Fire Department, we went on a call to a kid that was 21 years old. His 21st birthday, just fell over dead. 21 years old, right? And that hit us all pretty hard because most of us are far from 21 years old. When I was 21, being dead was like the furthest thing for me. And we worked on that kid for almost an hour. And we brought him back, and he'd leave us again. We brought him back, but it was just horrible, right? So, but at the end, it was like, all right, all hands on deck. Meet us at the fire department because we're going to talk about this stuff right now while it's fresh. And I never seen that back in the old days. It was like, hey, buck up, homie, And I've seen a lot of suicides. Most of them, of course, were after the fact. And there was none of that. So I think places are starting to get better, and we're starting to destigmatize this a lot, and we're, especially for us guys, because I'm not trying to be sexist, whatever. Send your letters to Michael. I don't want to read them, but most of the police forces, most of the fire departments are dudes, and here I am seeing these grown men that are big and strong, and they drag people and they drag hoses and they handcuff people and they fight, and we do all this stuff, all this tough guy stuff. But now we're getting together, we're holding hands, we're putting arms on each other's shoulders, and if you got to cry it out, do it here where you're safe. Nobody's going to judge you, nobody's going to let it go, and you have people there that are trained to help us get through it. And if they need help, then we help them together. So I think it's really going into a better direction. But you know, I think the myth of not talking about it is that old school mentality where tough guys don't talk. Tough guys don't talk about that stuff. Push it down. You guys have heard that, right? Push it
Yeah.
down until it becomes a gallbladder issue or something. I don't know. You have to take, 30 antacids every day because you pushed it down too much. So, our dads and our grandpas, man, if they heard us talking about this, they would lose their mind probably. But we're in a different time now. I mean, just think about like World War II. When the boys would get PTSD, what they call it? Shell shock. They blamed it on a munition. They didn't blame it on all the crap that was this poor brain, this little fragile thing inside the skull was just getting bombarded every minute by trauma, dudes dying, things exploding, and they blamed it on a munition. They didn't even admit that, okay, man, this really messes people up, and we probably should figure out how to help them back into it. So it's a whole different mentality. I would definitely say that's a myth. Probably more for the old school guys, though, right? I mean, people are starting to loosen up and starting to, I think, move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Mental health is coming more and more to the forefront in society, helping us realize how much this has influenced societies. This has been something that has been looming in the shadows and is now gaining that surface. I've written 3 different college papers about the biggest issues societies face because I have to take ethics, I got to take psychology classes, all these different types of classes that make you think philosophy, and I'm always writing about mental health is the number one issue the world faces, not climate change, it's not different cultures, it's not the Republicans or the Democrats, it is mental health, because at the heart, mental health is what impacts all these different areas and these beliefs and these struggles. I'm thankful that it's gaining more traction. And again, that's the whole reason we do this podcast, is to help spread awareness, to help people realize they're not alone and that they're not broken, because I think often we get trapped in those mentalities.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes this is better than any course you can attend. I've been through courses on mental health awareness and how to triage mental health and like all this other stuff. It doesn't take any of that. All it takes is an intrinsic ability to care about somebody else. If you can do that, and you can do that without even, it doesn't matter, black, white, whatever demographic you're from or whatever, if you can just look at a person for a person and because they have a heartbeat and because their life matters, you've already graduated any course that they're going to teach you, because it's all taught about, just loving and caring about people in general. So, I've been through courses and stuff like that, but, at the end of the day, they're kind of, some of it's good information. You got to find the silver lining in any situation, any type of course that you're going through. Put it in your toolbox, save it for later, do what you got to do. But this is the best way to connect. All it takes is like one person. How are you? Are you okay?
Yeah,
And
I
just
see
you
you.
walk
I
up
hear
to a
you.
complete random stranger, you'll be baffled at what you would learn
Yeah.
from somebody else.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Simple question.
But as we talk about here a lot, Michael, is we don't hide from things here, right? We do our best not to hide from anything. We name something, we call it out and we face it as best we can. And if we need help, then get help. There's lots of ways to get help. There's lots of people out there that will sit in the mud with you, right?
Yeah.
So here's another myth. People who talk about suicide are just seeking attention.
Sometimes those are
That's
the ones
cool.
that are screaming for help, and that goes back to the analogy I shared earlier. There are the ones that 100% suffer in silence. They just think that their shit's good and they're in check and whatever else. Sometimes those ones that are talking about suicide all the time possibly are the ones that are screaming for help more than anything.
Right.
I
But they're not
wouldn't-
doing it just to get your attention, right? Well, they are seeking attention for help, but there's people out there that'll say, "Man, will you quit it? You're just acting a fool so people will pay attention to you." Or they treat them like those people who use it as a threat, which is a whole different thing, to keep people locked in or whatever. And we see that a lot, especially I've seen a lot in the military. I didn't see a lot of it in my civilian life, but
I think a lot of people in the civilian sector hide it a whole lot better because they know what they're going through, but they don't really know what they're going through. And it's kind of weird. Like in the military, you know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know that you just left a 12-hour shift where you saw a kid hanging in the
Mm-hmm.
bathtub in base housing. That's PTS.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's not PTSD. It is not a
Right.
disorder. It is post-traumatic stress.
Right.
We all go through it. I hate PTSD. I hate the freaking acronym. It's bullshit. Get rid of the D. It's just PTS. It's post-traumatic
Yeah.
stress. That's all it is. And
Right.
anybody can go through it. It doesn't matter who it is. But I think the civilian sector has a whole lot different way of looking at it or just avoiding it altogether than what the military does. The military, it's in your face constantly.
Right.
Responder, it's in your face constantly because that's why cops have some of the darkest humor
Mm-hmm.
among society. That's why paramedics have the darkest humor.
We could spend 4 hours saying stuff I would never say on the air. Ever.
Exactly. And you doing that in front of some civilians, they're going to look at you like, what is wrong with
They
you?
have. That's why I said they do a bad job of kicking us back out there
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
I mean, people thought I was from some other planet, I think. And they're like, God damn, you're messed up, dude. And to me, it's just funny because but in the military, you're in the suck together, man. It's like nobody's going through crap that no one else is going through, and you learn in that bonding. We talked about this on that coach show, Michael, where everybody bonds. I mean, you were in the Navy, you understand what we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, people. I don't think people are just looking for just general attention when they're talking about it. And if they are, who cares? You need to confront that in whenever because maybe it's not. I mean, the odds are it's not. So do your due diligence. If you love that person, if that person's your homie or your wife or your kids, or always take it seriously. For me it was easy because whenever somebody would call us to deal with someone who had suicidal ideations and they would talk about it, we had a protocol. We just go and we talk to them, and nowadays even they have healthcare people that go on calls with people, which is good. That's another great step in the right direction because, okay, I went through the academy. I learned I'm a great shot. You don't want me to put handcuffs on you if you fight with me. I'm going to do it easy with you, but like you do, but I don't remember getting much mental health training. So,
Right.
it's like, yeah. So how you deal with it is like you're just trying to make it up as you go because you're like, holy crap, what do I do? Um, Here's another myth. Here's another myth that I found, and I thought this one was interesting because as a responder, it doesn't usually happen in front of me, so I don't know if it happens suddenly or over time. But suicide happens suddenly without warning.
Myth. 100% myth. I
Yeah.
hate hearing that.
Right.
There are
Yeah.
signs. There are always
Always.
signs. It
Yeah.
takes a roadmap. It is not now. You have, you walk in on Jody doing their job on, your spouse or significant other. Can that push people like 100% over the edge? Sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Of course.
When I was in Afghanistan in '09, we responded to a lieutenant. Suck started his 9 mil in the Porta-John.
Mm.
And we go into his hooch, and there's a video of his wife getting
Mm.
by two, and
Mm.
it was in a pool of money. She drained his savings account and had it
Oh.
on the bed. And she's like, I'm taking your kids. I just drained your savings account. You might as well just shoot yourself because you got nothing left. That's exactly
Mm.
it. Stand up dude, solid performance reports, had a bright career ahead of him, and it was just enough to just push you 100% over the edge. And at that point, there's no intervening, probably. I mean, you might be able to put yourself into like a barricaded suspect type of situation where if you have the right negotiator, you might get lucky, and it's all uncalled for. It doesn't need to happen in any way, shape, or form. People just need to be people. They need to be honest. If you're not happy in a relationship, walk away
Yeah.
and do it the right way.
Amen.
If you're a damn parent, be the best fucking co-parent that you can possibly be. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
kid's fault that the parents are having problems.
Right.
You're seeing that all
But
too
they'll
much.
suffer the most. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you're not.
the parents
Yeah.
are taking. I was there.
Yep.
Yeah,
me too. My parents were divorced at like 7. I was like 7 years old,
it's like
and there was a
own your
lot
shit,
of problems
be a
there.
co-parent and do your job. Be the best parents that you can still be. If it doesn't work between you two, that's fine. Don't let them Know that. What else? What other myths we got?
That's it. That's all I got. Those are the three big ones that I always heard. And I thought they were kind of silly, but because if you talk to anybody who is knee deep in this stuff, it's not. There's always some kind of sign. There's always some kind of and this, especially for guys, and I hate to keep saying that, but I know more guys than I do women. So, and I dug foxholes with guys, and you know, I've been clearing buildings with guys where, facing burglars and all this stuff. So, but this stigma, and Michael, you talked about it a little bit ago. The reason why so many people in general, I guess, even people that work those kind of jobs that are more male dominated, we'll say, they hide those struggles because they're afraid they're going to be seen as weak, or they don't want to be a burden, or they don't want people to think they're broken. And because, especially from the old school, it's like they always told us to toughen up, push it down, keep your pain private, right?
Yep.
So it's important for us to feel okay to talk about this stuff, man. It is changing, but go ahead.
Okay, not to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of my favorite sayings because I know for the longest time I suffered from toxic positivity. I always had to have the silver linings, and silver linings are great. But when you're keeping your head above the clouds to avoid looking at the fire burning around you, it gets to be a problem when you all of a sudden don't have anything left. And so it's important to realize it is okay to not be okay. If you're in a bad place, that's okay. This too shall pass. It's just all about pushing through and looking for that light. Keep on going. So, we were sort of dabbling in sort of the signs that to look for. What is it to look for within people to help us gauge if they might be at that point or getting close? Because again, I agree, it's a roadmap. It more often than not, by a huge margin, it's something that builds up and builds up and builds up until someone hits a breaking point. So what do we look for?
Well, I mean, I think some of the big ones are relationship problems, financial problems, parenting. Parenting is tough. There is no rule, there is no book or, diagram or anything that I know of that, teaches you how to parent. And then if you're doing it by yourself, it's, 100 times, harder. Some of the cliche stuff that, the military would always teach you is, if someone starts giving away all their precious belongings or, they're doing this or they're doing that. I've had very close friends that have committed suicide. They never gave away any of their shit. None of it. None of it. It was their stuff. Like they were happy-go-lucky up until the moment that it happened. Sometimes that is probably one of the key factors is they're going through so much stuff and then they just get super happy. And it's like nothing is wrong, nothing is going on. They have like the best time going on. They'll have everybody over. They will seem like they are perfectly great. And then you get that call. And it's like, what happened? What do I do with my hands here? I don't know what the hell is going on because he was just perfectly fine. So if you're that close to somebody where you can see the roller coaster, sometimes when they're on their highest ups is maybe when you need to show a little bit more care. I'm not saying, be super concerned, but if they're like on that very massive high,
be mindful.
Check in. Really see, kind of like what's going on and how everything's going on. So that's
fascinating you say that. I would have never thought about that. But so I got married recently and someone really close to me, we went out and had a great night while we were before the wedding. It was for my bachelor party and it was through the moon, one of the best nights of his life. And he ended up going through within 3 days of that. I had to call the cops on him because I knew something was going down. And I have been trying to understand what happened for a while now. And that's fascinating input because I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, if you think about it, okay, so like if you're kind of going through some stuff in alcohol, drugs, everything else like that, that's a high. He may have come to your party and was just having the time of his life because he was literally just not thinking about anything else in his life that was going bad. Because
we went to Vegas. He was doing great at those slots.
I'm sure like he had a good, comfortable buzz going on, like he was enjoying time with his friends. You gave him an out from his own reality. That was exactly probably what that was. He just had a time where he could just get lost in himself and just go have a good time. That's probably what he was 10 years ago. Just nobody probably even really knew it. But then once that adrenaline high took off and it just started to taper off, that bad wolf just come charging in. And it just filled his head through all that, all that suck that he'd just been going through and going through and going through. He doesn't have this high to rely on anymore. So now he's coming down off of that dump.
Okay. No, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, because that's like you blew my mind when you said that.
That's just what I could speculate because I've seen people go through similar things like that. You know,
Yeah.
I love having barbecues. I will have people over all the time. And I do notice that when I get a comfortable buzz, I'm carefree. Like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about the bills. I'm not thinking about the debt. I'm not thinking about this or that or, the fight I had with my kid 10 minutes ago. I'm there to entertain. I'm there to have a good time and da 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 da. But then once that comes down, everything comes back. Your fears, your worries, and everything else don't just go away just because you get, comfortable in a situation. It's still there. But surrounding yourself with good people, like for instance, I did all my stuff with the VA because I was medically retired from the military. Go through all my evaluations, get out, I get called back to do everything all over again. Not even a year,
Mm.
not even a year of me being post out, but I am 100% permanent and total. So you think I'm not going to get messed with anymore. So I'm in sitting with the psychiatrist, having a conversation, and this dude is dry as a bone. No conversation, no small talk, anything else like that. He's like, "Are you seeing mental health?" I said, "No." So he's like, "You're not seeing mental health?" I said, "I have a group of friends that if I need to make a phone call, they are my phone call. And we will sit and talk and we will scream and cry and do whatever we have to do." I said, "Do I need to be in mental health? I mean, please educate me because obviously I'm none the wiser here because I will tell you, one of the biggest things that's going to piss a vet off is if they're dealing with so much trauma and you make them purposely regurgitate it. You're gonna activate things inside of them. They're gonna make them go through all the trauma all over again. With vets, you just leave us be. Just kind of go with the flow. Let us work through our own shit because we're gonna have our group of people that's gonna be our ride or die. That we're gonna be able to call at 2 o'clock in the morning when we're just having a bad day. But I mean, if there's any professional medical on this chat, I'm not saying don't have the conversations, but don't try to purposely dredge up all their past because I'm telling you, you're going to piss them. You're going to help them self disconnect quicker than anything because they're just going to shut you down. So one tactic, do that. No, no.
No, that's good advice because, man, I know I love talking about this stuff, and that's something to be very mindful of. No, try to get a gauge where people at, and don't go fishing. If people want to talk, they'll talk, but don't try to force it out of them.
Yeah, there's an organization here, and the name of them escapes me. I hear them on the radio all the time, to and from work. But it's like counseling for vets, but they're all vets. At least they understand. It's a whole different people. People who know. People who don't know can't understand or fathom what we mean when we say out here is such a different world. Yes, I spent most of my life out here and then I did this for a time and now I'm back out here. But you come out different in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't even matter if you went to combat or not. You come out different. It just is. And it's hard for people to understand that. So it's really important for them to, as you said, if they weren't in the military, to really do their homework and figure out, hang out with a bunch of them so you can get an understanding of who you're talking to. And it's the same thing for first responders. Veterans and first responders are much closer than not. I mean, there's a lot of that because when you're going through the suck, you're going through the suck, and usually you're with these group of people, and it's not us and them or us versus them. It's just we went through stuff, good or bad, that made us different, and that when you can never go back, you just can't go back. I haven't figured out how to go back to when I was 19 before I joined the Army. Because I was a much different dude back then. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know.
Conditioning, right?
For better or for worse, probably.
I think that generates off of just who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I am a very heart on my sleeve, emotional, but I can keep all that in check. I've been that way my entire life. That aspect of me never changed with the military in any way, shape, or form. I
Right.
am just a genuine person who just cares about people. That's just who I am. I'll give you the shirt off my back. I don't care. Help benefits you at the end of the day, then I can sleep at night. Be the
Hmm.
person that can sleep with yourself at night. That's kind of what I always tell people. But you're absolutely correct though. A big part of you changes, but I think it almost changes for the better because now you're taking all that leadership and you're taking all the structure and you're you're growing yourself as a person and you grew yourself through hard knocks. Like a lot of operators, if you talk to a lot of operators, and you go to like their houses and you spend time with them and stuff like that. If you really watch them, they're never really mean with their kids. They never
Right.
really lose their cool. And a lot of people can, I've even asked, like, how are you just so chill about stuff? They said, because I operate in chaos. When
Hmm.
you operate in chaos as much as you do, you thrive on being able to come home and not have to operate in chaos. They're like, don't get me wrong, I can turn the switch on quicker than anything.
Hmm.
And I'm the same way with my son. He will see me go back to military, but that's to get his attention. I need that shock and awe to get his attention to switch his mind, to switch his thought process, to to have the light bulb. Dad's talking, and then I'm like, hey, dude, is this really the best course of action that we need to be taking? Or if I do come unglued on him, I will pull him back and explain to him that I am sorry. It was not his fault. It wasn't anything he did wrong, but I need you to, X, Y, Z in the third. So, that's what I always kind of found fascinating, especially when you talk to these guys that are under immense amounts of stress and pressure and adrenaline on a constant basis. They're like, if I don't have to turn it on, I don't have to turn it on. I mean, it's just great being able to live like calm and, you're not alert. I can tell you that because my head's on a swivel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just
Right.
it's natural.
Hmm.
And I've talked to a lot of psychiatrists and stuff, and they're like, "Well, we need to work that out of you." I'm like, "No, you don't. I'm aware. I know what's going on. I see what's going on. I'm watching people. I'm watching mannerisms. I'm watching their hands. I'm watching for exits. I'm at least alert and knowing what's going on. Do I have to be up here? No. I can be down here, but I can still be alert at the same time."
Beautiful. I think another big thing to be mindful of too. We've kind of touched on this with other parts of this episode, but life events are real and they can have an impact. And you may not realize what someone's going through, but it can take a major life event could really derail someone's mentality quickly. So when you know someone you care about, or someone you even work with, or someone if they go through a major life event, reach out, touch base, just show you care. Who knows? That might be the one reach out that makes them say, I need to talk to someone. Maybe I should tell this person what's going on with me.
Hmm.
And so just look for those moments that, someone may just need a friend, someone to sit in the mud with them, kind of like Justin said. And it doesn't mean go save people, but it just means, be a shoulder, be an ear. You don't have to give everybody advice, you don't have to save everybody, but you can at least be someone they can rely on when they're going through something.
And you piggyback on that, Mike, if you can pull them out of the environment that they're currently in and get them in a neutral spot, sometimes it is almost better because it pulls them out of that suck. Like if they're just going through it, sitting at their apartment, and just staring at the four walls, pull them out of the four
Hmm.
walls. Go take them
Well
on a
said.
hike, or go take them to go get a soda or something at McDonald's. I don't care, whatever. Pull them out of that norm because then it almost gives them like a comfortable blanket of knowing that they're somewhere else out of the place that's pulling them down.
Yeah. Well, as you say that, I mean, you talk about the band of brothers you have that you can call. I mean, I have a group of friends where it's like when one of us goes through something that we all get together, we all go meet up somewhere and just talk and show that support. We don't have to talk about what's going on, but be there. And I remember when I lost my significant other and my friends just reached out like, "You're going to dinner with us. You are coming out with us." Cause like, no, I just want to be
Hmm.
alone. And it's like, they pulled me out of my
Yeah, we'll come
house.
get you.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna come get
And it was exactly what I needed to sort of help me reground myself, realize, life ain't always rainbows and butterflies, It's like you'll get dealt some hard hands sometimes, but you can get through it, and it's great when you have support to just get through it. And I mean, these people I've been close with for 20 plus years, and I'm thankful I got them. And we've all had those moments where we all need to sort of band together to show up for one another.
And we truly are our brother and sister's keeper. We really are. No one's better suited to help somebody than somebody who loves you already. And that's really the crux of it. It's hard to go see a stranger. It's hard to go talk to somebody who they know nothing about you and you know nothing about them. But you know, your friends, your family, really. We talk about family as being that covenant that we build as we grow as people. Those band of brothers and sisters. It's your job. If you have a brother or sister in dire straits, it's your job to at least sit with them, to at least reach out. It isn't one of those things I was saying earlier, well, someone else is taking care of it. No. Assume that no one else is taking care of it because they're probably not. You know, they're probably not. So
I don't want it on my conscience when I go to their funeral to say, what could I have done or could I have done more? I always hated, you know, when you're at somebody's funeral and people are like, well, I never saw the signs. I never knew anything was wrong. Oh my God. Yeah. Now, there were signs. You just made a conscious choice not to, because you were scared. You were scared of maybe asking that question. And that is a viable response. It really seriously is. Most people are just, I don't know how to approach it. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help them. Maybe they don't know how to help them because they don't know how to help themselves. You know, it could be any number of things. But, you know, just go back to the, how you doing? Are you okay?
What's happening, man?
9 times out of 10, people are going to be like, I'm great, I'm fine. But if you ask that enough, you know, you might get them to crack. And it's a positive crack because now they can slowly start to unravel that yarn that's been those rubber bands that have been wound so tight for so long, and just hope you can do it in the opportune time where it's enough to intervene.
Well said. So we've talked a lot about the signs to look for in others. What are some signs we can do to watch ourselves? What is some good mindfulness practices to, you know, get a gauge on where we're at in life when that bad wolf is starting to eat a lot of hearty food and get up there, it can strike without knowing. What are some signs we can look for to help ourselves avoid falling into this trap?
I always say practice what you preach. If you're having a bad day and you're always that one that's out there for everybody else, I just call friends just for the shit of it. Hey man, what's going on? You know, da 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 da. And just like, I drive conversation if I'm like having a bad day or something like that because I just want to talk to people. That was one of my biggest fears of not only transitioning out of the military, but coming into this job now, Mike, is because we're all geographically separate. I mean, you guys at the shop, you guys are at the shop. You get to go in, you get to see each other, you know, and all that other stuff. But the rest of us, we're all geographically separated. I'm an extrovert. I don't mind talking to people. I will strike up random conversations at the supermarket for crying out loud, you know, just because, you know, you can learn something from somebody no matter what.
I got the same mentality.
So working completely remote was kind of, you know, was I going to get cabin fever? You know, all this other stuff of just staring at my office walls all the time, you know, all this other stuff. But being able to have the opportunity to be on Teams meetings all the time with the team, or you know, talk to you guys at the shop, or you know, whatever else. That's kind of really been the saving grace, you know. So, you know, just check yourself. I mean, practice what you preach. I mean, that's really kind of the biggest thing I can say. But that's also coming from somebody that, you know, practices mental health awareness on himself and other people on a constant basis because I care. I care about me because I know I have something to offer to not only my family, but to everybody else. And it could be just as simple as a hi and how you doing, you know, could be the impact in somebody else's life. So I say practice.
So here's I'm gonna dig into this a little bit. So I know, like I said, I used to be that person, always saving everybody else. Like, please call me if anything's going on. If you were to tell me that 3 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, you're right, and I'd never do it. What are some practical steps for people to start building that muscle they've never worked before on asking for help, to build connections in a way, allowing themselves to be vulnerable with those they love and care about? What are some practical steps people can start doing right now, good mental health or not, to be able to facilitate that if they ever need to.
I mean, that's kind of tough. I mean, everybody's got to kind of find that niche in themselves. But I think if you're in a good, healthy relationship with your partner, practice with your partner.
Hmm.
I mean, you're always growing as a couple. I mean, whether you're married, whether you're boyfriend, girlfriend, whether you're just, roommates, whatever else, practice on your partner. You know, ask them how their day is. Yeah, you're always going to ask, hey, how was your day? And you're always going to hear the bitch and whining,
Right.
groaning, and, whatever else. So the day and everything else like that. And we're like, are you good? Are you, overly upset about anything? Be okay asking those uncomfortable questions, because that is what mental health is all about. Be uncomfortable in the uncomfortable, because it's going to be just as uncomfortable for you to ask as it's going to be uncomfortable for them to hear you ask. And it puts people on the spot. People are like, I don't know what to say. No one's really ever asked me this before. But, when it talks about, yourself, I mean, God, if I'm feeling like shit, I want to find any way possible that I can feel unlike shit. So, I mean,
Right.
whatever that's going to take, self-healing, going for a walk, exercise is a massive component to positive mental health. It releases positive endorphins in your body. It just, you get a good sweat built up and stuff like that. It changes your mindset. You just don't realize it actually is. So get out and go for a walk. If you game, get on and play some games, but gaming is even kind of tough, because that just, depending on what type of games you play and stuff like that, that could just pull you deeper and deeper.
Dark Souls.
Right.
But no, I think you're absolutely right. And for those listening, if you struggle with vulnerability, with communication, start small and start with the people you trust the most. And just start building those little conversations. I love how you brought up, how are you doing today? Because that opens up dialogue. And then you can say, it's like, if you had something crappy happen today, here is the perfect opportunity to practice. It was good, other than I forgot to put my lunch in the fridge and it went bad. And I was pretty upset I didn't have lunch for the day. Just something simple. It's not you complaining. It's not you being a Debbie Downer. It is you just being vulnerable and authentic to those you love and care about. And I promise, because I know for me, my biggest thing was that I never realized it when I was going through it. I was afraid of rejection when I was vulnerable. And that's why I wouldn't let myself to be like that. But I've come to see the more vulnerable I get with the people I love and care about, the more vulnerable they get with me, and the relationship goes to deeper and more authentic levels. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing more powerful than having people that know you intimately and on a level that you might once thought was condemnable, So I love that. That was the perfect answer for that question.
Well, when my son, here's a little tactic I use when my son's having a bad day. We'll talk about how his school day went, everything else like that. And he'll be like, well, I got into an argument about this. And I'm like, tell me a positive thing that happened today. Well, I found a feather on the playground. What was the feather? The more you try to drive them out of that negativity and they start focusing on like that positive thing, then it leads to other positive things. Oh, well, I made this friend today. Or, I had a great lunch. I had a great conversation with somebody at lunch. And it slowly starts to have them feed that positivity and feed that good wolf, where it brings them away from the negative thing. It's finding the silver lining in the day. So I urge folks, even like, in your relationship, you're always going to hear the negative. Tell me one thing that went right today. And it could be just as simple as, well, you gave me a hug before I left for work. There you go. That's a step. That's a step in that positive direction to communicating further and having further dialogue, where it breaks down the barriers of the nervousness of actually having those types of conversations, and it feeling so deliberate that at a point it doesn't feel deliberate anymore. It's just natural, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. So one of the things I bring up quite often on this podcast, there's this area of our brain called the reticular activating system. And it is the part of our brains that get activated. You buy a new car, you see it everywhere, right? Well, what that is this part of your brain is going to hunt for whatever you believe in or you hold at the front of your mind. If you are focused on something negative and you start to spiral, your RAS is kicking in and it's looking for negative. And for a lot of people who are going through depression, through hard times, kind of like you're talking about how it's like a roadmap, we got to retrain our minds to start looking for the positive. This is going to sound really ridiculous, but this really helped me. I started looking for hearts. As silly as that was, in the heart of my depression, that is what I use as my anchor point for my reticular activating system. And I'd look for it in the clouds. I'd look for it in the rocks. I would look for it just in the shape the stone was cut. Anything I could find to start training my brain to look for something good. And so the more we can start to hone this in, if someone's going down that negative spiral, if they are doing that a lot, especially, help them start pulling into the positive. Because the more we can do that, the more we can start retraining the brain to get out of this negative space that unfortunately can be all consuming. It is a black hole if we let it. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up because I love the brain, and that touches right on that. So, when it comes to pathways of hope and healing, we've talked about family, we've talked about relationships, we've talked about friends. What are some other resources people can use? You talked about hospitals. You can go check yourself in and allow yourself. And I know that seems so daunting. I know for me that I feel like that would be overwhelming for me. But at the same time, it's not you going in there saying, I feel like I'm suicidal, and them locking you up and trying to be like, you're doing a bad thing. I don't know necessarily what the process is, but it's been very effective for so many.
Yeah, and of course the easy one is the Lifeline 988. They made it so easy.
I was just looking it up myself. I knew it, but I forgot it.
Beat you by a second.
It was like the one thing Congress said, hey, this is a good idea. Let's do it all together. Let's make 988 the number.
Therapy, that's another good one. If you're dealing with a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, if you're going through it, there is nothing wrong with finding a therapist. And I get therapists have a bad stigma. Like, a lot of people just don't want to do therapy. Therapy isn't there to tell you how you're broken. Therapy is to help you work through your stuff and help you reclaim your life, even if you feel in control. I think everyone should go to therapy. That is my own personal belief, because I think, again, our brains are computers and we get viruses and malware and we don't realize it's there. And therapy is the antivirus software you run in there to help clear out all the junk you stored in your brain.
Did you just compare the therapist to the Geek Squad? I think that's what you did.
I'm not promoting anybody here.
A piggyback to that, Mike, and you're absolutely 100% correct, but you have to be in the mental state to want to get that care. Because you can send somebody to a counselor all day if they're not in the mental capacity or in the mental state to actually receive it. It's a full negative condensation, because now they're not pulling anything out of it. They're so shut down. And you see that a lot in like couples therapy and stuff like that. When somebody doesn't want to admit that maybe they're the problem, they just shut it down. And that was my ex-wife. We went to counseling, and she just did not want to accept her faults. If I'm wrong, I will tell you I'm sorry, and I will openly admit I'm wrong, because I'm a grown-ass man. I can accept the fact when I'm wrong. I can take the constructive criticism, all of it. I'd almost rather you give me the constructive criticism, because if I don't know I'm screwing up, then how can I change it in myself and make myself better? So I think that's a big key fact, is they have to be in the mental capacity to want that care and to want to have those conversations. And that could take a while. That could legitimately take quite a long time before someone actually is in a comfortable spot and has let some of the adrenaline stress or whatever else kind of like pull down enough to where they will actually use their ears to listen, instead of it just going in one ear and right out the other. So I think it's a really good point. You have to be willing.
Yeah. Well, I think, what I was talking about was more for us personally, as we know we're going through it, but I think you're right. When it comes to other people, especially when they're going through these really deep and dark places, we got to meet them where they're at. We can't try to force them anywhere else. You got to meet them where they're at. And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
You can't force people in that situation to comply with what you think is best. The best you can do is sit there, help hear what they have to say, and help maybe nudge them in that direction. But you can tell when someone doesn't want to be forced into any type of therapy or situation like that. Sometimes all you can do is just go and sit in the mud with them.
And that's why, to kind of piggyback off what Gabe said, our closest people, again, they know us. They know us better than sometimes we know ourselves. They know us very well, more than a stranger. Of course, therapy is a good option for many people. It's just hard to get into therapy sometimes, You ever try to go through the VA?
Yeah.
Good luck. They're just going to throw pills at you for 6 months and then get to talk to somebody. And a lot of times it's too late by then. But our people can meet us where we're at much better, much easier than than a well-meaning stranger. I'm not trying to badmouth mental health professionals, but they would probably agree with what I'm saying. It's for them, it's a tough nut to crack, as you were talking about. They got to just sit there and bang, and if you're closed off, they're never getting through. So, yeah.
Do you guys have anything else you want to add to this topic as far as just suicide awareness and sharing thoughts?
Well, you were talking about avenues to contact, so just some other resources. You got Military One Source. Military One Source will give you 12 sessions with a licensed professional for free. And if that professional feels you need more, then that agency can request more sessions through the Military One Source, and it does not cost the member anything at all. 988, of course, the suicide hotline. And use your people. Use your people.
And all of us are the people. Dude, take care of your brothers. Take care of your sisters out there. That's, I mean, I could go on this big long speech about, you're worth it. You're all this, but really just lean on each other. Be your brother and sister's keeper. Pay attention. Keep an eye on each other.
And allow your brothers and sisters be your keeper.
Absolutely. Surrender to that. It's okay to be vulnerable. And, I have hope for some of the stigma that's being erased. As I get older, I see it less and less. And it's a good thing. Stigmas kill people. They always have. And people die in silence, right? So let's take care of each other. That I'll just leave it at that.
Amen to that. So we're going to do something a little different. I really want to do a call to action here for the end of this episode. I want to encourage everyone listening, start having these conversations now about mental health, about what's going on in our life. Start creating that dialogue to create that safe space for when you're going through a hard time or someone else is, to know that you or they can be vulnerable. Remember that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And, like and share this episode to those who you think could benefit. This is the whole point of this episode. We want to spread awareness that it's okay to not be okay, and that there are resources and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you that. I don't care what your situation is. I swear it on my life. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So, we do a ton of affirmations every episode, but I just got one for you. You are needed, you are loved, and your story isn't finished yet. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gabe. This was the new Ashla podcast with love and gratitude. Ad Lucium.
Ad Lucium.